So we're going to talk about painting the figure. There's a long history of figures being in artwork, and originally it was pretty flat and pretty 2D, but then they learned more about shadow and form and light and shadow, and they were able to create, artists began creating these amazing, um, epic, you know, lifestyle figure paintings, including like, all these Adam and Eve, all these biblical things. And then we saw figures used more for narrative, and then, towards cubism and stuff, they started really playing with what is a figure and what does a figure look like. So today we're going to kind of talk about some tricks of how people do figuratives historically. And, there's a long history of like exploring this. Da Vinci had notebooks full of anatomy and looking at the body. And kind of what we've learned over the years helps you to do a good figure. Proportion is the most important thing when you're trying to create a human body. And the general rule of thumb is our bodies are as tall as about 8 of our heads, 7.5, some people say. And also, if you look at this one, chest to shoulder to shoulder is about 2 full heads and like across. Arms are generally about 3.5. Legs are about 4. Head to groin is about 4 heads. So those are just some general proportions. But it's a good guideline because if you're looking at your drawing and you're like, wait, my body is only, six, equivalent of 6 of my heads, you know that you have to lengthen it. Um, and what you can do is you can kind of look at the picture you're doing and break it up into basically eighths. And that's also like a good point. The shoulders are going to be where the shoulders are going to be, where you need to put the joints. I tend to look at the joints more so than other things, but some people go by the navel. We'll talk about this in class, but yeah, proportion is the most important thing because it's what you're going to immediately notice if it's off. Like that's when you look at a drawing and the body seems strange, that is what's off. So you kind of look at the hip bone. You see like where it's the knee to the foot should be 2 heads. This is another good show of proportion based on heads as the measurement. So we'll go through that in class too. But that's just a good starting point. But another thing that you notice if it's off that makes a body look off is your alignment, the curvature. Spines are not straight really. So a good thing to do, these are called plumb lines, these yellow lines. A good thing to do is to first map out the curvature of the spine and then figure out the alignment of the shoulders and the hips. And that's just a really good starting place. That's going to set you off in a really good place to establish the rest of it. And we'll talk more about plumb lines in class, but that just makes sure that you're figuring like, hey, in this drawing, my arm should be hitting my hip bone, my right hip bone. Are they aligned in the same place? Alignment's just another thing. If it's off, you're going to notice it. So we'll talk about this more too. Um, and body angle. So we'll look at like you can kind of look at, so say in these poses, what is the angle of the arm? What is the angle of the leg? And how can we kind of align those better? So I'll be walking around if you're doing figures and helping you look at that. And another really important thing is remembering these are like anatomies underneath the surface. Like Julia can probably help us more with this, but so remember that there should be light and shadow. So how can we look at this a little bit more? Let's look at the masters. So this is Caravaggio, whatever, and he was like the master of light and shadow, and he told us about the form under the skin through that, and that's how we get the sense of the tension of the muscles and the turn of the body and the psychology of these things. Again, Manet was alignment. I think of alignment with these like arcs of these bodies, these beautiful curvatures of all of his forms. Eakins was another master of light and shadow, but he was all about the muscle and look at like how he gets into the form of the body and the angle. Bonnard is the most famous, probably for nudes and these beautiful, again, light and shadow and curvature. Toulouse-Lautrec was really looking at the angles and alignment and these great, awesome, tense poses. So modern day contemporary figured artists for a while it was very uncool, but now it's cool again. Paul Rega is from the 70s, just a really kind of awesome person to look at when you're looking at what you can do depicting the body. I'm going to show you one man here, John Curran, who I cannot stand. So let's just look at how this man likes to show people. And then some current Eliza Nissenbaum does really amazing figurative political artwork, and really just nails kind of everyday stances. Alejandra Hernandez kind of takes it really stylized. Mira Dancy really is like old school kind of expressionism from a modern day painter. This is one of my favorites. Anna Berger. When I play the What Would I Buy game, she's always on the tip top of my list. And her depiction of the figure is, and how she uses that to make a point is really beautiful. Genevieve Figgis, just like gestural, really awesome, just gestural marks, and we get the whole energy of the body. I cannot pronounce her name. Sanan Katabi, love her work. It's really stylized and moody, and very simple depiction of a human form. You don't have to go crazy being perfect. Jordan Castile's huge. She does these amazing modern stances and figures. Lisa Yusavich has a big show up right now, and she's really stylized also. So I can't wait to see what you guys do if you're choosing to do figure tonight. So I'll see you tonight.